Hello, this is TechMan88, and I've been doing some research on the server speed of these zero-tick cactus farms. And basically the conclusion that I reached is that these pistons are the laggiest part of the whole thing. The entities also take up quite a bit of the time. I can run a tick health command, say for 100 ticks, 5 seconds. And it'll give me data like this. So the blocks would be the pistons moving back and forth. That can also show up under tile entities. I'm not exactly sure why. I think when there's slime attached to one of these pistons, then it gets counted as blocks. But then just the piston head moving back and forth, I think that's tile entities. And then entities, of course, is just the entities on the ground. And then there's this tick entities command, which can give another breakdown. This is going to be about the same. So item in overworld, 1.3 ms, moving piston, stuff like that. So this has been pretty helpful for me to just try and optimize. Oh, and also another thing that can, I think, count for the block lag, or maybe just show up in some other category, is the lighting changes. So like if I don't have this roof up here, and I come down below, I guess you can't see it now, but sometimes it'll blink. I think maybe if I remove this block. Yeah, so you can see a little bit of blinking. It might not show up on YouTube too well. But this is basically what I came to the conclusion as the best design. And the unit that it's measured in is basically cactus per second per MSPT. So when you reformat that, it's just cactus, an item like this, so 929 items per CPU second. So I think I know why the pistons show up in tile entities instead of just normal blocks. I think the reason is because these pistons actually turn into tile entities briefly while the piston extension is out. So that's why you can't push them, because they're actually tile entities. And that's probably why in the carpet mod they end up in that category. So if I turn the machine off and just rerun that same command, it takes a second. So the tile entities are much lower. So 0.22 when it's off, and then 0.99 when it's on. So those are definitely the cause of that lag. So this farm, which I call Small 62, so I did a bit to optimize the collection and everything. Like I use fence gates here instead of like glass panes. That's actually because of the row down here. If you put a glass pane right here, stuff is going to fall on it from above. And yeah, fence gates for something this small, it's not a big pain in the ass to do that. And then here is kind of a different type of triggering mechanism. So it uses this mechanic where a piston can react to a redstone dot 2 blocks below it. These are butted pistons, of course. So yeah, that just enabled me to squeeze everything in here, because you need all the hoppers around here. You can't exactly have a water stream going right through this. But yeah, I thought it was better like this. Just go straight into a chest. And this is a little bit higher than hopper speed. So if you just wanted to be hopper speed, you could maybe take out a couple cacti. And the clock that I use is just the same clock that I used on all my other versions. And it has to be this, like it has to be 6 game ticks on, then 6 game ticks off. Because it takes 6 game ticks for the piston to do its extension and retraction. So yeah, there's not much to that. And I'll have a world download, so if you want to look at it, you can do it that way. But yeah, it's pretty simple. You should be able to just figure it out by looking at it. These are 2 block gaps between here on all sides, and then these little formations to get the water in the right kind of flowing pattern. So in a design like this, you can see that each zero-tick piston right here is going to trigger 3 of the cacti around it. And it's not every single one. This only gets the update once, this one between the 2 pistons. And of course there's 2 rows. In a design like this, Each piston only touches 2 cacti. So yeah, this one over here, it's about 3 per piston. This one is only 2. And plus this is only a few wide, so it's actually lower than that. And add on to that, there's these item pushers on top, which they do increase the efficiency about 25%. So you don't lose as many cactus items, but you have more pistons going around. And of course, more competitors and stuff like that, all taking up lag. So I found that the loss you get from items falling onto an adjacent cactus, like in the corner, I found that that's less than the efficiency you gain from just having a more efficient piston layout. So this design right here was one of the first designs I showed. Just going to go look at that again. I don't think I've changed it much at all. There's a missing block. So yeah, this works pretty well. This is about twice as fast, the cactus per hour, but it is quite a bit more laggy. I think maybe 30 to 40% more laggy per cactus you actually get. So another way to boost efficiency even more on this, I think you actually get up to 100% efficiency, is by adding these cobwebs here. So the items, they would get kicked out by the piston, but they still have some velocity. It's some piston little things about them. But when you have the cobwebs here, that actually decreases the server performance, because you've got all these entities hanging out here. This might be a 1.13 thing where entities just take a ton of processing time. There's no good reason that this should be taking up like 2 ms. I can just run a tick entities command again, see what that is. And I've only got, of course, 1 row with a 1 column with the cobwebs. So item in overworld, that's all the way up to 4.3 ms. So that's pretty bad. So I've got another version over here. I called this the Skyblock version because I don't use any comparators or observers, all the quartz components. So this actually seems to run a bit faster than the observer version. And I think maybe the reason is because these are all on 1 tick instead of 2 ticks. That would, like, in programming, that might arrange data better into caches and stuff like that, if it makes sense. And another improvement, this is suggested by Nessie, is just to use powered rails instead of redstone. So that's going to give a little bit of speed improvement. And in here, these are all synchronized. These are all on 1 tick again. And then I have another option for this version, just to push the items every other time. So this line right here is going to trigger the item pushers, and now it's set to do it every other time. This seems to work properly. And just a 0 tick pulse on this little rail, so that gives an update to the piston next to it, and that's what pushes it up and down. Another version that I was working on, this is a ultra reliable version. So I've got all these extra pistons over here to try and update this, so it actively pushes these slime formations up and down. And I also rearranged it a little bit. So these are updated by comparators instead, and these are going to detach the pistons. You really can't even see it, it's too fast. So these observers turn on and then turn off, and that's going to retract the piston before it can pull down. So they're actively pushed down by a piston up here, this piston right here. So another way I helped reliability a little bit on this one, it's kind of weird. I just use these observers reading this powered rail over here, and that's going to provide even more updates to this piston. And this seemed to be the magical touch that actually made this work properly when you go into the Nether and back, because you can see these are giving updates all the time to this piston, these observers here. And I found that you can actually go into the Nether and do one of those bad types of unloads. Like if you just save the game, all these machines that I showed before, they'll be fine. But if you go to the Nether with these machines running, they'll break. But this one right here, if I go to the Nether, And I just need to wait 15 seconds. So I've got a command right here to just do that. Just tick warp 1,000. That's over 15 seconds, and then teleports me back to the surface. So that's going to allow it to unload if it actually runs. Yeah, there it goes. I've had some reliability issues with that. And then the one I was running is over here. And the problem would be is that if this didn't work successfully, if it couldn't use that autosave or the chunk unload stuff, like the cactus would be broken off. This is very sensitive. These always have to be zero tick pulses, or it's going to break the cactus. So I was also testing out Ilmango's design that he published for his spawn chunk EXP farm, and maybe I'll just explain how this actually works because I don't think he did that. So these are pushed down with a 3-tick pulse. So it's 3 ticks on, then a couple ticks off. And that's down here for just 0 ticks. And that's going to power the piston next to it. And then on the other side, there's a similar thing just with these redstone dots instead. And this over here, this is the clock which produces this kind of weird timing. Just using the same type of leaf tech. And I have to slow this down to see it. So you can see these, one will turn on, then one will turn off. So these are each 2 game ticks. So that just shows that this is a 3 game tick on, and that's what gives a 0 tick pulse. Kill all the items. So I did expand this a little bit. I made it a little bit longer, and I found that this does have lower performance than mine. Maybe that's not a totally fair comparison because it's so much longer. It wasn't really intended to be this big, I guess, and it expands over more than one chunk. But yeah, the main lag issue with this one would be the items moving across the ground. And it does have a bit more clever item pusher thing. But after I've run this for a bit, I've noticed that some items will come off on the wrong side. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. It might actually react too quickly to the cactus growing. But I think it is quite a nice, clever design, a bit more lag-friendly. So another reason that Ilmango's design is a little bit slower is actually these item pushers. So they hang out on top of the cactus so it can't grow for a little bit. And I found that gives about a 10% loss in efficiency, like efficiency per MSPT, because the piston is over top and it can't grow. So I think that it gives about 1,900 cacti items per cactus here, but theoretically this runs at about half the maximum speed you can grow a cactus, which is 4,500 cactus per hour. So this lowers it from about 2,250 to 1,900. So that's a bit of a loss there. So just looking at this in slow motion, you might be able to see the problem with this with Ilmango's version is that this isn't quite synchronized to the cactus growth. So I think when these give 0 tick pulse, it tells it the next game tick to try and grow a cactus. But that's exactly when this respawns because it's a budded piston. And yeah, so that respawns 1 game tick after the cactus grows. And then another piston is going to start pushing in the next game tick. So this piston's movement over here, it's going to interrupt that. So on my designs, I didn't have that problem that Ilmango's farm had, because this piston it's always precisely timed. It doesn't read whether the cactus grows or not, so you could say that's an efficiency lost, like for server time on this farm. But you don't get any efficiency lost due to this to the item pusher hanging out on top of the cactus. So this is some of the data that I collected, and I collected a whole lot. I mean, I did a ton of tests, and the way I did it is I'd get a baseline MSPT, then I'd do a running MSPT and just subtract the two, and that gives the machine MSPT. Then I have some extra stuff here, but eventually I calculate cactus per second, and then then what I do is divide the number of basically divide the cactus per second by the machine MSPT, and that gives me a rate. So this would be the rate. So for Ilmango's design, that would be 390 cactus per CPU second. Then, like if I teleported the entities to myself, so that eliminates all the entity lag, that's quite a bit better. This would be like a measure of the theoretical efficiency. So like the Skyblock version, that was up to 616 with mine. So that would be about 30% faster than Ilmango's version. At least the expanded Ilmango's version, so that's not a totally fair test. Then like the ultra reliable version, that's quite bad. I think that's actually a bit higher than it should be. But I found I found that that's pretty awful. Then this one I call small 62. Let's see, this would be quite a bit better, like in the 1,000 range or 900 range. So this is a graph of the data down here. So this is Ilmango's version down here at the beginning. Then a Skyblock version, a bit more optimized, and a bit more. But yeah, when I got into this stuff, got the idea to just use more cactus per piston, then I found the efficiency went way up. So this would be the first version that I showed in this video, way up there. And then over here, I have another set of data. So this is using the tick health command. So yeah, you get these are all the things that spits out. And then I did the same kind of calculation where I calculate cactus per second, and then I divided these up here by cactus per second, and that gives me these values. But yeah, in the end, this is what you're looking for. This would be the CPU seconds spent in each part of the algorithm, and how much they contribute to the overall slowness of it. So Ilmango's version, as I was saying earlier, that has more entities sitting around, so that's the main cause of lag here. That's the culprit. And then over here, this is the first one I showed. I just call it small 62 for some reason, and yeah, that's quite a bit lower. So yeah, graphing data out like this really helps to really get the best values. So my conclusion in the end is that Ilmango's version is actually the worst out of all these. It's not load and save safe, so you can't just save your game like save and quit to title. 390 items per CPU second, so that's pretty decent, not too bad. Over here, just reviewing all these, this is the Skyblock version. This is about 616 items per CPU second. It is load and save safe and no quartz needed. So this could be an option, but I think the first version I showed is superior to all of these. This is another version I showed just using observers instead, and this is pretty decent rates. And then if you add cobwebs, that actually decreases the performance of this. Then this is the ultra reliable version. So this is 300 items per CPU second. You can go to the nether just fine, and of course it's quite slow. But I thought that was a pretty nice accomplishment, at least, to make something that does all this crazy zero-tick stuff, and you can unload it by going to the nether. So this seems to work in every single case I've tested. This is just an attempt at something that just got way too complicated. So I added an extra piston down here to try and give another zero-tick pulse to this cactus in the cycle. So it's a 6 game tick cycle that this clock works on. So the other designs, they use 4 out of the 6 game ticks with like this piston, this piston, this piston, and this piston. Then I added another piston down here. But the problem with this is just having to do so much crazy slime stone and stuff. It's just kind of ridiculous because I have to have these things actively pushed up and down, and you have to make sure they're always 0 tick pulsed. So this, I think, can be labeled under as a failure. And just showing that in action looks like this. Pretty crazy, but just too much. I think it's also worth mentioning the very first design that I came up with, just without item pushers. It's kind of hard to build because you have to place all these glass panes. But yeah, I found that the loss from cactus landing on itself is actually just fine. Just fine for server performance, so it's about equivalent as the other designs, about 600 items per CPU second. And just to wrap the whole thing up, this is the best version that I've found. I think it's about 900 to 1,000 items per CPU second, and this is using quite an old CPU. You can see it 3.4 gigahertz, so it's not a fast CPU. And this might not even be a concern for a lot of people, the server speed. But I wanted to just try and improve these farms while they still work, because I don't think in 1.114 they're still going to work. They'll probably break it, because it's really just a simple bug with these pistons. Oh, and another thing just to mention with this is that these pistons right here, they aren't actually going to push items into this cactus, because there's these 0 tick pulses. They'll actually pull the item toward the piston, and then they'll probably spit out on the side. So that's just an interesting thing about pistons. There is something like translocation still, if you do the 0 tick pulse, but I don't think it's really worth doing anything. It's really only relevant for these cactus farms. Anyways, I think that's just going to about do it for this this whole cactus farm series that I've been doing. The whole cactus month, cactus week, whatever, is probably going to come to an end, because I don't think there's a really good way to improve upon this type of design. Maybe do the slime slightly different, maybe have some overhangs, I'm not sure. But I don't think I'm going to be trying to improve it anymore. So anyway, thank you for watching, and goodbye.